Well, y'all know what that chime means. It's time to talk some Jets football. Let me bring in our Jets insider. Let's welcome in Nick Faria to the show today. Hello, Nick. How are you?
How's everything going, guys? Great to be back on.
We're doing phenomenally. We're trying to check in with all of our New York teams when it comes to all things minicamp, and I want to do that with the Jets. So let's check in. I want to start with the biggest story of the offseason, and that is you guys got yourself a new quarterback. Let's talk about Justin Fields, his leadership, and how did he look in minicamp?
Yeah, so let's start with the leadership point of this whole thing, because I think that's the most important for any quarterback. And it is really easy to fall in love with Justin Fields, the person. Very charismatic, ability to talk, really handles himself well in the locker room, really does a good job of just being around his team. He mentioned right before they broke away for this month-long vacation that he was going to keep in touch with his receivers. They were going to work together to continue to build a plan and continue to build cohesion and chemistry. So all of that is good. Everything off the field, he looks like a franchise quarterback. Problem is, you can't be a franchise quarterback with just off the field things. You have to be able to win on the field. And some of the issues that we saw early in his career, the completion percentage in the fourth quarter, being late on his reads, being a little too slow to process, bailing from the pocket a little bit too early, all those things have followed him over the last 4 years with the Chicago Bears and the Pittsburgh Steelers. You are seeing similar things happen at minicamp. You saw it happen where some of the issues he had, where he was late on some of his throws, he was late in his processing, that was happening at minicamp. Now, in fairness to him, he's learning a new offense and he's working with new people all around him. So it is going to take some time to gel and get up to speed with the talent that he has at his disposal. But the big question, of course, is the Justin Fields over the last 4 years, should that be a cause for concern going into training camp? I know a lot of Jets fans are hoping, listen, a new system, they're going to focus with him playing quarterback. All of that's going to be really, really good. But I can't unsee what I've seen. A lot of the things I saw at minicamp were similar things that he struggled with at the NFL level to this point. So there were certainly some good things. That arm is locked and loaded. When he is on target, when he is decisive, he can be a pretty damn good starting quarterback. There's just too many inconsistencies right now that I think is the one thing he needs to fix first and foremost.
All right, so let me channel in the movie Austin Powers, a wonderful, critically acclaimed series.
Let's hopefully it's the original and not the sequels. Which
right. There was a lot that happened there, but there's all these times where Austin Powers says this line. Well, what does it all mean, Basil? So I go to you, Nick Faria, and what does it all mean, Aaron Glenn? We want him to play quarterback. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. We want him to play quarterback. Tanner Ranger, we want him to play quarterback. What the hell does that mean? I thought he's been playing quarterback the entire time in the NFL. But you've been playing wide receivers. You've been playing tight end. What does that mean, Nick Faria?
Decisiveness, intentionality, making sure that he is going through his reads and sticking with those reads. And instead of second guessing, make the throw. Instead of wondering and making sure that you're protecting the football, make the throw. So to me, they talked about we want him to play quarterback. And what I took that to mean is they want him to be himself. He's a running quarterback. Use his legs. He's a guy that really, when he targets his first read, he can be a solid starter, like I mentioned. So scheme up ways for that first read to always be open for him. There's a way to do it. And I think the expectations cannot be what they were with Aaron Rodgers. The Aaron Rodgers saga was a mess. No one's denying that. But Justin Fields, even at his best, of what we've seen in the first 4 years, is not Aaron Rodgers. That's an objective statement. We're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But if they allow him to play quarterback and continuously run with that one read and go type of offense, are they going to be a Super Bowl caliber team? Probably not. You can't survive off of a one read and go type of offense. But you can make the playoffs. You can be very difficult to stop. You can be very difficult to defend in the regular season. So I think the expectations for Justin Fields have to be showing incremental improvements as a passer, but also winning some games as well, because he didn't even really do that throughout his career in both Pittsburgh and Chicago.
That is true. And also when you say
playoffs, don't talk about it. Playoffs?
Okay, that gets me a little bit going, of course, with the playoff drought for sure. And I have a follow-up, Nick Faria, on the offense. Tanner Engstrand's the guy. He's been an offensive coordinator in the XFL. He's been an offensive coordinator in college, but he hasn't done the job at the National Football League level. And Ben Johnson, at least perception-wise, gets a ton of the credit for all this stuff they did over there in Detroit. So we're all left with, what is it going to be? What is it going to look like? They have a lot of interesting pieces on this offense with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Mason Taylor and some of these, cool customers coming in. But do you have any sense on what we're going to see week one?
I think you're going to see a mix of what they did in Detroit, but also with and I hate to say this because so many people get on my case about it, but a 2021 Eagles flair. 2021 Philadelphia had a very flawed quarterback in Jalen Hurts, really good offensive line, but they could run the ball effectively. And if you build that offense around, if you build this Jets offense around running the football and making sure Justin Fields isn't throwing the ball over 20 to 25 times a game, you can be pretty successful. So it's going to come down to the offensive line. It's going to come down to scheming Garrett Wilson open, relying on the rookie tight end Mason Taylor. This has the potential to be a very fun offense. We'll probably put more butts in the seats this year than they did last year by December, because there are going to be some fun moments and Justin Fields will make some wow plays. The question just comes down to consistency. If he can win from the pocket consistently, this team can be a playoff team. If he doesn't, this could get very ugly.
All right, talking with Nick Faria. You see him right there on our screen, our Jets Insider. By the way, on our little at MC Show digital channel, please like the video if you're watching right now, if you enjoy what you're listening to. And also, don't forget to subscribe at MC Show Digital. All right, Nick, let me talk to you about Aaron Glenn. I always love a coach that wants to come to an organization. And this is a guy that played for this organization. He showed some real leadership qualities as the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. What is he bringing in terms of culture so far, even in these early stages, to the New York Football Jets?
Kind of mentioned it already, but intentional. They are very intentional with how they teach and how they instruct their players. It's a big difference from the previous regime, where the regime essentially said, hey, we're going to go all in and try to make the playoffs right away. They kind of saw what happened in year 2 of that system, where they won 7 games and they started 7-4 and said, hey, we're just a quarterback away, baby. And now we've got our quarterback and we don't really have to do much else about it. Everyone's going to be focusing on winning. Aaron Glenn is taking a step back and saying, we can focus on winning, but in order to do so, we need to make sure we are buttoned up across the field. Every position group is technically sound. Every practice is intentional with how we instruct and how we work together in scrimmages and in particular positional work. So to me, Aaron Glenn is far more intentional than we've seen in recent years. I think he has answered questions very, very fairly at this point, because you don't want to make a decision on any roster move already at this point. You're going to make that when training camp begins. So you don't want to give away the secrets, the secret formula, if you will. But you are seeing a coach whose idols and whose mentors are some of the best in NFL history. Sean Payton, Bill Parcells. You are seeing little incremental moments of a Parcells look, a Payton look, and even a Dan Campbell look that show that this is not some coach that is jumping into a position for the first time and has no idea what he's doing. This is a guy who may not have called, offensive plays before. He may not be a head coach before. He knows how to do it. And that's a big difference from some of the past coaches that we have seen in recent years, whether it was Todd Bowles, whether it was Robert Saleh. This guy knows what he wants. This guy knows what it takes to be a successful head coach. And he is putting forth a plan that he believes will get the Jets in much better situation than they've been over the last 14 years.
Nick Faria, our NFL reporter for Athlon Sports, Jets beat reporter for JetsXFactor.com here on the Manchild Show, Boy Green Digital. When I take a gander, I'm looking around the room. Where are we? I see the Manchild Show, Boy Green Digital. How that's green. Green field beneath us. Oh, that turf looks very nice. Oh, green colors above. You want to know who else may be seeing green in their future, Nick Faria? Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, baby. They're trying to get the Brinks trucks backed up. Is it going to happen? Because there's been some debate on social media. Do you do it now? Do you do it later? They each have 2 years left of team control on their deals. Plus, of course, the complicated nature of how much they're even worth, whether it's now in 2020 versus 2025 versus the future. Nick, what are the answers here on these very pressing contract matters that have taken up a lot of the offseason chatter?
Hey, Nick, and before you answer, let me say this. I call it the new Jerry Jones rule. Do it now. That's what I say. What do you?
And again, I completely agree. And maybe it's just because of my background and the teams that I've seen and covered over the years. But the more successful teams tend to pay their young players early, and then they have them underpaid by the time that their contract comes up again. So, I mean, you tell me what works. Paying CeeDee Lamb $35-40 million while he's counting about, 10% of the salary cap. Paying Dak Prescott $60 million to lead the league in interceptions before he tore his hamstring up in the midway point of the year. This isn't rocket science. You pay your guys early and you do it consistently, because when you start doing it consistently, people are going to want to play for you, not just draft picks, but also free agents as well. So I'm a firm believer that Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner will get their extensions at some point, whether it's in training camp, whether it's before the season, whether it's in this month off, whatever it is. I am a firm believer of that. More importantly, because they made the first move. They didn't sit back and miss organized team activities. They did not miss the voluntary portion. They negotiated in good faith and said, we believe in this system. We want to show our commitment to this new regime. So we are going to be here for everything. Now, if you're the Jet side, you say, okay, well, we've got two really, really good young players who want to be here. What's the holdup? You pay him $30 million a year and you move on. That to me, it's the easiest way to get this. Garrett Wilson, is he a top 5, top 10 wide receiver? Probably not top 5. Definitely a conversation to be top 10. But you're hoping the potential is there. You don't pay players for past production. You pay for the potential of what they could be. And if you believe that Garrett Wilson's the number 1 receiver, if you believe Sauce Gardner's an all-pro, then you damn well better believe that they're going to be really good in their prime. So it makes a lot of sense to get these 2 deals done very soon.
All right, let me talk to you about rookies, because minicamp is a place where we get to our first look at rookies on the pro level. Let's start with the Jets taking another swing at an offensive lineman. Didn't go so well the last time when they took a swing with Mekhi Becton as a bit of a swing and a miss. This time they bring in Amon Membu. What does he look like so far? What kind of player you expect him to be?
He's been quiet, and I think that's the best way you could possibly hope for an offensive lineman throughout mandatory minicamp and just the offseason workouts. Now, I want to stress, has he gotten beat? Of course. Of course. Every lineman gets beat at this point in the offseason because there's no pads on. When you're running the football, you cannot be aggressive and run over your teammates because that's just not the way to do it right now without pads on. So I think we are going to see a lot more of Amon Membu and breaking down how he looks once training camp actually begins. It's not really fair, in my opinion, to judge an offensive lineman when the pads aren't on, because physicality is such an important part of that position. But I have liked what I've seen from Membu. The athleticism is certainly there. I look at it right now as he is probably the 5th best offensive lineman on this Jets team right now. He has the potential to be one of the best. He certainly can be a really good run blocker. I think he has a lot of potential in the passing game as well. So it's just a matter of integrating him slowly into the offense, making sure that he's comfortable, but making sure he's also ready to go against some of the best pass rushers in the NFL, because they are coming early on this season. You get Pittsburgh with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. You get Buffalo with their collection. They are going to be tested. This offensive line will be tested. But unlike previous years, I think this group is ready. They are young. They're a little bit inexperienced. But this group certainly has the potential to be a top 10 group in 2025.
Nick, who have been some players that have stood out? Because we've had a few phases, obviously, of the offseason. Players started showing up in April. We had rookie mini camp. We've had OTAs, mandatory mini camp. We've had every layer, obviously, before we get to a training camp this summer. Who have players both, whether positively or negatively, have stood out to you, and why?
I got to go through the full list. Let's start off with Garrett Wilson. He's been uncoverable, just unstoppable, absolutely incredible. Looks like a number 1 receiver. So let's get that started right away. I love what I've seen from Mason Taylor, the 2nd-round pick. I thought he's been getting open consistently, sure hands, athletic. He is a player where I think by the end of the year, you're probably going to see him be 2nd on the team in targets at least for the second half of the season. Maybe not early on. It's always difficult to determine how good rookie tight ends are. But in the second half, I expect a big run from Mason Taylor. So that's pretty much the offensive side. I like what I've seen from Arian Smith. Josh Reynolds has looked really solid as a number 2 receiver. All those things are going to come into play later on. On the defensive side, A.Z. Thomas, the third-round rookie, has looked solid. Again, Jamian Sherwood, Quincy Williams, guys that I think are pretty self-explanatory at this point. But 2 guys I think don't get a lot of credit early on. Isaiah Oliver, I think, has looked really good working at both safety and in the nickel. I think he's going to not only make the team, but be a key part of this team moving forward. And Byron Cowart, the defensive tackle. They don't really know who they want to have outside of Quinnen Williams at defensive tackle. They're going to try to rotate these guys in. But if they could get a semblance of a consistent force along the defensive line, that'll help them tremendously. And I think Cowart, to this point, has certainly done that.
Talking with Nick Faria, our Jets insider here at MC Show Digital. If you like what you are hearing, please click the like and also subscribe to our channel at MC Show Digital on YouTube. All right, Nick, I want to talk about some locals here. I mean, our show generates out of the central New York area, and in particular Syracuse. There's a couple of Syracuse former players that are on this roster. One that the Jets acquired that everyone in Syracuse will know that's an SU football fan, and that's Andre Cisco. I also understand that Jonathan Kingsley is getting
Kingsley Jonathan. Yeah.
Kingsley. Yes, I knew I was wrong, and I was trying to think through it. Kingsley Jonathan, another guy that came through Syracuse, is getting a look by the Jets too. Let's talk about those 2 players and some Central New York products maybe making an impact on this year's squad.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of Jonathan, at least to this point, but I will say about Andre Cisco, he looks the part of a starting safety. To me, if he came out as a free agent last year, he's probably making a multi-year deal because he had such a great year at Jacksonville. What was it, 2023? He was really, really good. This year, not so much. The defense itself was awful. Caldwell just was not a very good defensive coach, in my opinion. The talent level on the defensive line was very good. And Cisco was kind of blamed for a lot of things that weren't really his fault. He looks the part of a starting safety. And the bargain that you get having him on a 1-year deal this year is probably one of the better steals of free agency because he can be a Pro Bowl caliber safety. Not saying he's on par of some of these top guys, but he's certainly a player who is a ball hawk, who can, be a rangy player as a center fielder option and also come up and deliver a pop right away. So I've been pretty impressed with what I've seen from Cisco. He's another one where I want to see the pads come on because he plays so physical in coverage. So something I certainly want to see moving forward. But he's a guy that I loved when he came out of college. I loved seeing him in Jacksonville. And now that he's a part of the Jets, I think he could be a steal playing for his hometown team.
Nick, you don't need me saying this because you already know it. You just said it, but that take is so right on Andre Cisco. It's so funny. We talk about narratives, right? Sauce Gardner, first team All-Pros, first 2 years, third year, not a first team All-Pro. Whoa, what's going on here? But if that would have been his first year and he followed it up with 2 first team All-Pros, make him the highest paid corner in football. Andre Cisco, right? He just happens to have his worst year at the worst time with his contract status. He has to get a 1-year deal. I think the Jets got the steal of steals. I think he's going to show everybody, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, he's pretty good. And I think we're certainly going to get that. There's no question about it. Training camp. We have that, obviously. We have this big gap of time before we get to training camp. In your notebook, what's the storyline that you have circled that we're like, oh, okay, this is something either, it could be a positional battle, perhaps. It could be players that you're watching to get on the field. What is revving your engine at this point looking ahead to camp?
I would say 3 things. First off, the obvious one is Justin Fields. How does he look with the pads on? How does he look with a full off season now with his new team? With this offense, the deployment of where everyone is supposed to be. How does he look at this point? That's number one. That's always going to be number one with a player like that at the starting quarterback position. Number 2, it's going to surprise some people, but New York's young receivers, what do they look like? Arian Smith, I have been very high on him since the first practice at rookie camp. I loved what I saw. It was like I was being transported back in time watching Deshaun Jackson. He got hurt. Now, there was an undisclosed injury, whatever it was, but he was not a part of mini camp practices. So we'll wait to see on that. But if he's healthy, what does he look like in pads? Is the lack of physicality that we saw in Georgia, is that a problem that he's going to have to deal with? That's a big question. We also have to talk about Malachi Corley. hasn't really participated in offseason workouts. You don't really know what you're going to get from him. At most, when he gets the pads on, you expect him to be what he was at Western Kentucky, a bruiser, get the ball off his hands and watch him work, that kind of player. You didn't see that last year because they didn't really give him the opportunity. Well, he's got to earn an opportunity this year more than anything else. So what happens with Corley and what happens with Smith, very, very interesting in my opinion moving forward. And then you look on the defensive side. What the hell is going to happen at corner? Because you have Sauce Gardner, you have Michael Carter. Those two spots seem pretty solid. Brandon Stevens signed a 3-year free agent deal, and it was not some cheap contract. It was $36 million. You're paying him over $10 million per year annually. I understand that the cap hits are a lot different, so it's not a true, $11, $12 million you have to think about, but it's certainly up there for a starting cornerback. It's fair price, but it's up there. Well, then they drafted A.Z. Thomas in the 3rd round. As of right now, I think A.Z. Thomas has played a little bit better than Brandon Stevens. When the pads come on, will that remain the same? I mean, Brandon Stevens, you're paying him that money. You expect him to be the every down cornerback for the next 3 years at least. But the fact that they brought in Thomas, the fact that Thomas has looked that good early on, it's going to be interesting because could this be a situation where they signed the player, but then someone in the draft just fell into their lap and they said, okay, you know what? Shiny new toy. Here we go. So what happens at cornerback is going to be interesting. If I were to give one more honorable mention, if you will, what happens with Jermaine Johnson, what his recovery looks like will be very important because right now Will McDonald looks great. You need another edge rusher outside of Will McDonald. So that's going to be a big concern moving for the Jets as well.
Nick Faria, there's another fun story brewing in camp that I know you're got to be following, and that's the thicker kicker, Harrison Mevis, right? Not Revis, Mevis, 242 pounds of pure power. Let's talk about this young man. He comes from the UFL and was pretty successful over there. Is he a guy that could make this Jets roster? And what's all the scuttlebutt about the thicker kicker?
Yeah, so there's a very good chance he makes the final roster. There's also a chance where if he and K. Davis struggle, that they just do what the Washington Commanders did last season, where they had all these problems at kicker in the preseason, and then they waited for Austin Seibert to fall into their lap when the Jets cut him right before camp ended. So I don't think, excuse me, I don't think the Jets are in a position right now to give the job to Mevis or Davis without any training camp battle. And if it's a case where both players struggle, they're not just going to pick one of them and say, okay, this is the guy we're going to go with. They're going to want to figure this out. So there's still a chance the starting kicker in 2025 is not currently on the roster. That being said, this is the position battle right now. And if I were to give a favorite or so, I think Mevis is probably the front runner. I think Davis struggled at offseason workouts a little bit to my liking. He missed a lot from 40-plus yards out. I thought Anders Carlson outkicked him at certain points. So that's why I was a little surprised today when the move was made. But the Jets also, wanted to make sure you got a little bit of money. You want to get younger at special teams. So that's completely understandable. So it's just a matter of what the team prefers at this point. But just because these two guys are competing right away at camp does not mean that these are the two guys they're going to be picking for once the season begins.
Very good point. Again, the Manchild Show, Boy Green Digital is happening right now with myself, Manchild, and Nick Faria, baby, at MC Show Digital on all social media portals. That includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and obviously right here on YouTube. Like the video and hit subscribe. Nick, as we continue to look forward to training camp here, who's the player that needs pads? Because throughout this process, Aaron Glenn has sort of talked about it, where they're competing out there in underwear, as he likes to say, that they don't have the pads on. But some players don't look good until they get the pads on so they can really show it. You mentioned some of the trench warfare with offense linemen, defense linemen. It's sort of hard to judge in this early part of the process. Who's a player or players that to you needs the pads on and they're going to show everybody what they bring to the table that they haven't been able to show thus far?
Malachi Corley, kind of already mentioned it, definitely needs the pads on because he's that physical player. I think Joe Tippmann's another one. One of the better centers in football, but really, really good run blocking wise. I think he'll help himself a lot once training camp begins there. I think I mentioned before, Armand Membu, another one, will be very important. How about Will McDonald? I mean, this guy is all about speed along the edge. We know how great he can be as an edge rusher. but he's also gained some weight. He's trying to gain some power to his game to allow himself to be an every down run defender, something he was not last year. I think if he can show a level of physicality when the pads come on, that's going to go a long way for the Jets not to panic about their defensive line moving forward. Kind of already mentioned him as well, Brandon Stevens, AZ Thomas. Those are two guys that I think Stevens, if I were to venture a guess right now, he's probably going to start week 1. If Stevens plays well when the pads comes on, he's going to get more of a leeway. But if AZ Thomas is able to show that physicality and show an improvement in speed, you may see him on the field a lot earlier than many people anticipated because he looked that good without pads on. What's going to happen when the pads actually go on? So a couple of interesting names to keep an eye on.
And Nick, what about the Breece Hall situation? Oh boy, fans were like, okay, he's here. No, wait, he's going to be traded. I'm just kidding, he's here. All right, maybe it actually is going to be traded. No, wait, he'll be traded during the season. What is the future of Breece Hall, who's entering a contract year, and as he called it, he's coming off a terrible year?
Talk to me after week 9. That would probably be the best thing because, look, he's not getting traded right now. It wouldn't make any sense for them to move him at this point because they want to use the by committee approach. And all 3 running backs, Isaiah Davis, Hall, and Braylon Allen, they all bring something unique to the roster. That being said, if Breece Hall looks really, really good within the first 9 weeks and the team is 2-7, are you going to pay Breece Hall long-term money when you're clearly trying to rebuild? I wouldn't do that. That'd be a very poor allocation of resources for the future cap. So instead of letting him walk in free agency, ship him to the highest bidder. That's why I say right now he's definitely a part of the Jets' plans. I think those plans can change if they're at the bottom of the barrel, in the NFL this year at the start of the season, where they're competing for the number 1 overall pick and are trying to get an extra 3rd or an extra 4th, whatever it ends up being. It's just going to come down to the overall asking price, but also where the team is. If they're 5-4, they're not trading Breece Hall. But if they're 2-7, 1-8, I could absolutely see that happening.
All right, and last one here before we get you out of here. Lurch mentioned it. Thicker kicker. All right, some Brutus Beefcake being added to the roster there, sure. Are there any other additions to come? That's what Jet fans are going to be talking about for the next 6 weeks. Oh, what other addition could happen that's added to this mix? Everyone wants a new wide receiver shiny toy for Justin Fields. Is it that? Is there another position on the roster that you sort of have circled here? Is there any addition to come, Nick Faria, under our training camp Christmas tree?
I don't think wide receiver is going to be addressed. And the big reason why is because I mentioned this a bunch. Justin Fields does not really target his 2nd or 3rd option at wide receiver a lot. You look at the stuff he did in Chicago. You look at the stuff he did in Pittsburgh. They didn't target wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. It was wide receiver 1, tight end, drop down to the running back. And that was essentially the trajectory of the offense. And I think it's going to be very similar for the Jets. So I don't think wide receiver 2 is of great importance to this team right now. I think if there's a position that they may want to address, it's probably defensive line. Maybe they look and say, hey, we could really use another edge rusher. Maybe we throw a couple $1 million at a free agent, something like that. Special teams is always an option. If they don't like what they have at punter or kicker, they could sort of go back into the well there. I don't see wide receiver as a legitimate option based on what Justin Fields is as a quarterback. If this was Aaron Rodgers and you were talking about having all those different weapons, absolutely I could see something happening. But this isn't to say he's bad, but he doesn't target the wide receiver 2 position enough in order to give a guy like Amari Cooper $9 million on the free agent market.
Nick Faria, Athlon Sports. Hey, give a plug to all your digital connections and your social connections for all our many listeners out there. Great resource for Jet stuff. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, Nick_Faria 1720. I am working on a couple new things, so potentially we'll be teasing that in the near future. So a couple exciting things still to come. So I appreciate all the support.
All right. Always welcome to cross-pollinate, Nick, and thanks for coming on our little digital channel at MC Show Digital. You can like and subscribe us right now if you're watching this video. Nick, we'll talk to you again soon. Go Jets!
Thanks, guys. Thank you again.